On December 8th, 1940, was the site of the NFL Championship played at Griffith Stadium in Washington, D.C., where the Bears were taking on the Redskins. In an historic moment, as the stadium was packed, every fan was ready to see who was going to win. Little did they know they were about to see the most lopsided game in NFL history. Join us today as we dive into the 1940 NFL Championship game, also known as the most lopsided NFL game in history. Today on Daily Sports History. Welcome to Daily Sports History. I'm Ethan Reese, your guide, because every game, every sport I play is a lopsided loss. So, in 1940, the NFL was starting to get a little traction. It was the 21st year of the NFL's existence, and at this point they had 10 teams. And just to give you an idea how long ago this was, the Pittsburgh Pirates were actually in the league the year before, and they had just changed their name to the Pittsburgh Steelers. So in the East Division, there was the Washington Redskins, the Brooklyn Dodgers, the New York Giants, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the Philadelphia Eagles. And in the West Division, which isn't very west, is the Chicago Bears, the Green Bay Packers, the Detroit Lions, the Cleveland Rams, and the Chicago Cardinals. So by this point, most of these teams would stay in the NFL as we know it today, except for the Brooklyn Dodgers, who would end up folding in 1945. And the leaders for each statistical category were Byron Weiser White, who led the league in rushing with 514 yards, averaging less than 4 yards a carry. The leading receiver was Don Looney of the Philadelphia Eagles, who had 707 yards. The leading passer was Sammy Baugh of the Washington Redskins, who would pass for a league-leading 1,367 yards, throwing a total of 12 touchdowns. So as you can see by those numbers, compared to today's standards, this time period was very different than the football we have today. So the Chicago Bears had a great season under legendary coach George Halas, as they went 8-3, winning the Western Division by 2 games, earning the right to play in the NFL Championship game. And the Washington Redskins, they were coached by Ray Flaherty, who actually broke out this year, turning the team around, who led them to a league-leading 9-2 record, as they would go on to win the Eastern Division. And both these teams were led by some legendary quarterbacks. The Bears had Sid Luckman, who was a young Jewish quarterback from Brooklyn, who was the face of the new offense that they were running called the T formation. He was becoming one of the best quarterbacks in the league. And then there was Sammy Baugh, known as Slingin' Sammy, who was a star, known for his arm strength, his field vision, and, as we said earlier, led the league in passing yards and passed for 400 more yards than Sid did during the season, as Sid only threw 4 touchdowns during the season and had a completion rate of 45%. Again, football was very different back then. And this was a pivotal moment as the nation was very worried at the time about everything. World War II had already started. Now, America was not in the war yet. That wouldn't happen until a couple years later after Pearl Harbor, but it was still had a lot of racial and social dynamics, really kind of made it hard for the NFL to integrate, as there were few black players at the time. Now, coming into the game, the Bears were actually the favorite. Even though the Washington Redskins had more wins, the Bears had been around longer and been more of a powerhouse for more years. And their T formation offense really had set them apart. So the fans gather around, each team starts to take the field on December 8th, 1940. And this was a unique experience, as it was the first time that an NFL title game was broadcast nationwide on the radio. That meant everyone on the West Coast, who barely knew what football was because they didn't have any teams over there, because I guess we can only have teams on the East, could hear what was going on in this game. Listening to games back then was more normal, listening to the radio, and it was broadcast by the Mutual Broadcast Company over 120 different radio stations across the country. And they estimated 25 million households were listening. Now, they go by households back then because you just gather everyone around. So You multiply that by roughly 4 people per household, you got 100 million people listening to the game. Just listening. On top of the 36,000 that were there in person. And they were all expecting to see a great game, but no one told that to the Redskins. So the Bears come out, and they really start fast. On the second play from scrimmage, running back Bill Osmanski ran for 68 yards for a touchdown. And then Washington gets the ball back, and they march to the 26-yard line, and they got so close that their receiver, Charlie Malone, dropped a sure touchdown pass in the end zone that would have tied the game up. Instead, they had to settle for a field goal attempt that they actually missed. So, the game stayed 7-0 when Sid Luckman marched them down and scored a 1-yard touchdown run, increasing the lead to 14-0. Still, the game's not out of hand yet, but Washington is not able to do anything on offense, so the Bears get the ball back, and Joe Osmanski ran for 42 yards for another Bears touchdown. So at the end of the first quarter, it was 21-0. Now, we've all seen the Patriots and the Falcons game. The game isn't over yet, and there's 3 more quarters. But Sid threw another touchdown pass to King Kavanaugh in the second quarter to give them the lead 28-0, as Washington could do nothing on offense. They had a good first drive, and their offense just continuously stalled out. So coming out in the second half, the Washington Redskins are going to try to pass their way out of it, try to catch up as fast as they can. Except they throw an interception to Hamppool, who runs it back for a touchdown, giving the Bears an even bigger lead, 35-0. Then the Bears get the ball back after Washington fails again, and Ray Noodling runs for 32 yards for another touchdown, 41-0. And so as the Washington tries to come back, they throw another interception where George McAfee runs it back for a touchdown. And Washington gets the ball back, and they throw another interception, this time to Bulldog Turner, who runs it back for a touchdown. That's 3 interceptions in the third quarter, ran back for touchdowns. The third quarter ends, the score is 54-0. At this point, why are you even listening to the game on the radio? I made this big deal to make it broadcast across the nation, and who wants to listen to this game? It sounds terrible. So, the fourth quarter comes along, and the Bears are trying to run out the clock as it's a clear blowout. And then Harry Clark breaks out for a 44-yard run and a touchdown. The score is now 60-0. And then the Bears continue to try to run out the clock again and end up scoring another rushing touchdown. And they do it one more time, trying to run out the clock so that it doesn't look so bad for the Washington Redskins. But there's only 100 yards, and you can only run the clock out so much till you score. And they scored again. Harry Clark scored again, giving them the score of 73-0. Luckily for the Redskins, time was on their hands as time expired, so the game was over. They didn't have to endure this anymore. The final score, 73-0, ended up being the most lopsided game in NFL history. The next closest one happened in 1934, which they broke that record of 64-0, where the Philadelphia Eagles decided to play the Cincinnati Reds, and the Reds forgot what sport they were playing and they got destroyed. The next closest championship game blowout happened back in 1995 when the San Francisco 49ers beat the San Diego Chargers 55-10. So to give you some breakdowns of what all happened in this game, how crazy it was, the Bears ended up with 501 yards for the game, which is a pretty good stat, especially for back then. Redskins had 245. The Bears ended up with a total of 8 interceptions in this game, and were able to recover a fumble. That's 9 turnovers compared to their 1 fumble loss. This was the main reason why the Redskins lost. When you turn their ball over like that, there's no way of winning, let alone competing, and they just gave the game away through this. Now, the Bears may have had some extra incentive into this game. They actually played the Redskins earlier in the season, where the Redskins actually won, and George Preston Marshall, the owner of the Redskins, called the Bears crybabies and quitters after the game, giving them extra motivation heading into the championship. And after this game, the T formation became a staple in the NFL as everyone wanted to run it, showing how much success the Bears had running this in the championship game. And this game was so much of a blowout that the officials actually asked the Bears to not kick any more conversions. Instead, just go for the 2-point conversion in the fourth quarter because they were scoring so much. Now, this would become a pivotal moment in NFL history as the next couple years would kind of mess things up, as the next NFL championship would happen 2 weeks after Pearl Harbor in 1941. And the Bears and the Redskins were a staple in the 1940s for championships. As the following year, 1941, the Bears would end up beating the New York Giants to win another title. Then in 1942, they would have a rematch where Washington would get revenge on the Bears, winning 14-6. Then in 1943, they would face off again, where the Bears got the best of Washington again, winning 41-21. Then Washington would lose another championship in 1945, and the Bears would win another one in 1946, showing that they were two of the best teams in the 1940s. And each team has actually won a Super Bowl as well. And they had a lot of success, but they will always be part of this big moment where Washington got destroyed by the Bears. Sad to say, that might be the worst thing they could have ever experienced. My question is to you, do you like to see these big blowout games, or do you like to see defensive struggles? Let me know. Reach out to us on our socials so you can let us know what you think. And come back tomorrow for more Daily Sports History. I want to thank you for listening to Daily Sports History. If you like this, please let us know wherever you're listening by leaving us a review, telling us how much you love the show. That way others can know how great the show is and can join our community. And come back tomorrow for more Daily Sports History.